Well, welcome to the Business Spotlight series. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at Action Coach in Central Texas. Today, I'm sitting down with Kyle Massey, who is the owner of Lone Star Lettuce Growers. Super excited to be sitting down, having a conversation, talking business, talking entrepreneurship, talking all the fun ins and outs of what it's like to kind of run a business these days. So, Kyle, first and foremost, thank you for taking the time to sit down with me to share some of this with us today. If we could, let's just start with a little bit of background. Tell us about you, 10,000 foot view. Like, what's your background? And tell us, what is Lone Star Lettuce Growers?
Sure. Yeah. So my background does not point towards a lettuce company for sure. So I grew up in Texas. I went to UT for undergrad and studied finance and a lot of biology. Graduated in 2010 and really had no idea what I wanted to do. So I went and did corporate finance for about a decade. Did various roles there. I'd say I liked it, but never just absolutely loved it. But I did have the chance to learn a lot and work really all up and down a full P&L, which was amazing. So I worked in Dallas for a while and then up in Chicago. My wife was doing grad school. Then we moved back to Austin. And it was at this point, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was still working remotely for my finance job, but was unsure of just I had kind of a life moment of like, do I want to keep doing this for another 20, 30 years? And so this actually started in my backyard. So I built a small aquaponics system in my backyard and realized how much I loved doing it. I loved getting to tie in the biology aspect and the science that I had learned previously. And just the thought kind of came into my head. It's like, this is really cool. It works. And I started doing a lot of market research around the area. And it turns out there's a big demand for locally grown organic greens. And being in Central Texas, you normally cannot grow things like that for probably 3/4 of the year, just because it's so crazy hot here. And so that kind of just got the ball rolling. I did a lot more market research. I visited other farms that are doing this, and I finally pulled the trigger in mid 2020, and I quit my full-time finance job, and I bought a small piece of land just north of Austin. I built a greenhouse. I built the system inside of it, and really just started growing lettuce. And it's gone through a couple of iterations. So we started as a full-time aquaponics farm, which is basically raising fish and raising vegetables concurrently. And so you feed the fish, and that in turn feeds the vegetables. So that was the first iteration. We did that for about a year and a half or so. And then to get more consistency and really expand, I changed the business model to full-time, just organic hydroponics, which is what we're doing now. And we're having a lot more success with. And so we started that model in January of this year, and it's been going well. We've been ramping up and selling more and more. And yeah, certainly been quite an experience.
That is quite an interesting journey. Super cool to see that. I love kind of the transition there. But before we get started, I want to just kind of I always like to set the stage. Have the opportunity to chat with so many different types of business that are in different phases of their kind of maturity and growth cycle and all that kind of stuff. So I'd like to set the stage for the viewers here. And so generally speaking, what does your current ownership structure look like? Now, what I mean by this is, is it just you? Do you have partners in the business? Have you taken on outside investors and kind of have like a board set up? Just generally speaking, like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, right now, it is the large majority myself, just built, and I should say that being we're at a very small scale right now, compared to other hydroponic operations. But the plot of land I bought still has quite a bit of space for expansion. And when or if that happens, then I will be likely seeking outside investment to help grow the business. But yeah, this is really a small scale, trying to prove it type model that I have going on right now.
Very cool. With being kind of small scale at this point, and you may, I think you've alluded a little bit to this already, but I always like to ask, like, what is your role in the business today? Being smaller, I'm guessing there's a number of different hats that you've got to wear in the business at this particular point. But what is your role in the company look like today?
Yeah, so it's certainly a lot. So I first of all, I did all of the building myself. I mean, I built the greenhouse, I built the system, and I maintain all of that. But I'm wearing a lot of different hats right now, which is it's challenging, but it's also fun. So I mean, I do the strategy, the finance, the accounting, the marketing, the sales, and a lot of the operational work as well. So we are being such a young company, we have a really low headcount in terms of employees we have. I think we have maybe four, and most of those are part-timers actually, which means it's a challenge for when someone calls out sick. That means I really step in, and that happens pretty often. So I'm super involved operationally right now, but also wearing all the other hats and trying to sell the product and expand into different markets. And so yeah, I'm really doing it all, which has been a challenge and something I didn't get to do previously working in corporate.
Yeah. Uh, as you've just kind of continued on this journey, knowing the background that you've had, all that kind of stuff, are there particular aspects within the business or kind of hats that you could wear in the business that you enjoy the most, and some that you're like, as soon as I can hand this off to somebody else, this is the first one to go?
Yeah. Um, That's a good question. I'd say I still enjoy the strategy and finance and accounting. I mean, just because that's my background, I love doing it. Um, I've also really enjoyed selling, which is something I didn't do. I never worked directly with a customer. I was always the person in the back doing the numbers for the person out selling. But yeah, getting to go and meet customers directly and pitch my product is something I've really enjoyed. Um, the thing I'm trying to get more and more away from is just working directly in the operation. I mean, meaning like the sowing, the transplanting, the harvesting. Like I enjoy doing that, but I would rather be thinking strategic and growing the company. And so I'm trying to find a balance between those two.
I love that. Have you found, just out of curiosity, is you're looking at kind of growing the business, that sort of thing? I imagine that means more team members coming on. Have you been kind of in the marketplace where you're starting to look at hiring, or are you just not at that point yet? And it is we're going to stay as lean as we can at this particular point, and we'll look at bringing additional people on at this point. Kind of what is that looked like for you at this moment in time?
Yeah, it's funny you should ask that because I actually hired a full-time manager actually like 2 weeks ago, and he will be starting next week. So I've come to realize, I mean, I can't keep wearing all of these hats. So I am starting to bring in a little more headcount and figuring out how the employee structure and responsibilities will be shared. So I think as we have become a little more established and we've gotten some customers and are selling at a larger scale, I need help with a lot of the operational type things. So have brought in a manager, hoping that goes really well. And I likely will be hiring someone else too for a more greenhouse technician type role, just to help with the operation, day in, day out stuff. But yeah, that's one thing that's been a challenge is, you know, head count and payroll is by far our most important and largest expense. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've really tried to focus on like, we can't be too heavy on headcount, but at the same time, if we're too light, then I have no extra time whatsoever in my life, and I will get just pulled in more and more. So trying to find that balance has been a challenge.
And that's a fun one, I think, for a lot of businesses that are kind of in the earlier phases, right? You've only got so much time that you can invest. At some point, you run out of time to invest, and you've got to now look at, how do I expand that? How do I buy back some of my time and bring on additional people? So first off, congratulations on hiring a full time kind of management person, bringing that in here in the next couple days. That's absolutely fantastic. So I want to go into kind of what makes your business so special. So you hit on a few different points about what the business is, and how it operates, things like that. I'd like to take a step back and say, who does it serve? Like, when you look at who primarily do you sell to today, and who do you look to sell to in the future? Kind of what does that look like for your business?
Yeah. So first, our business is special because we are producing a product that most everyone cannot produce in Texas. So that is, we're USDA organic certified. So everything we grow, we get that organic stamp, which is super valuable to a lot of folks, especially here in Central Texas. Um, and then again, we're growing a product that can't be grown throughout most of the state for, again, probably 3/4 of the year, just given our climate. And we've learned through, again, a lot of market research that folks in Texas want locally grown, even if
Mm.
it's not something that you can just go out and plant in your backyard. Um, the stat that blows me away all the time is 90% of the greens that Texans consume actually comes from either California or Arizona. So it's just shipped
Wow.
over here. And so that is the market we're going after. So, we recognize that Texans more than anyone have just so much state pride and love things from Texas. If you know Texans, they're just as prideful as all get out. So, we're going for locally grown, organic, super fresh, and so far it's gone well. Like, we've been able to find a consumer base that really likes that product.
Is most of the consumer base like grocery chains? Is it restaurants? Is it a mix of both? Kind of what is?
Yeah, so I'd say probably 90% of our volume right now, we're selling through wholesalers who in turn sell to restaurants, hotels, businesses, really all over Texas. Um, and then the other 10%, the thing I really enjoy, we do sell at farmers markets around Austin as
Mm.
well. And I like doing that because we get to talk, face to face with our final consumer and get to hear feedback and the pros and cons and everything. Um, so yeah, we have a few different channels we're selling in right now, but longer term, our goal is to get into a retail type environment. So like at HEB, Whole Foods, types of retailers like that, but haven't made that jump quite yet. We do have our food safety certification, which is a big challenge to get. We actually just obtained that about a month ago. And really we couldn't sell into a retailer before we have that. They wouldn't even pick up our calls. So we now have the opportunity to do that, but I keep reminding myself to take baby steps because we're still learning. We're still failing all the time, albeit, one of the biggest lessons I've learned is when we fail, we want to fail small so we can fix it
Mm.
and then move forward. So, I don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse too far. So right now we're moving most of our volume wholesale, and then we're also doing some farmers markets, which is a nice little profit boost for us.
Very cool. My kind of next question in there that I think you just pretty much just answered was, what's that limiting factor in making the jump from where you're at to the larger retailers? Is it just simply a marketing question, like having the conversations with these types of organizations, or has it been more of a based on how we're set up today, let's continue to refine and get to that point before we make that leap? Anything else you want to add on that? It sounds like it's probably more the latter than the former. Uh,
Yeah. So there's a few things. One is the certification and making sure you're doing everything right, which we have that now. Really what's holding me back is I feel like I need more data to prove that we can be a consistent supplier once we do scale up to that level of a customer. Because if
mm,
we were to go to Whole Foods or HEB or Albertsons or someone like that and successfully sell into them, they're going to demand, and rightfully so, that we can provide 10,000 units a week or whatever it'll be. And again, we're so new and we're still learning. Just like 2 months ago, we had a really bad caterpillar outbreak in our greenhouse, and it devastated like half of our crop, and it took us a few weeks to get past that. So like that is something that I know we can't have happen if we are selling into a larger customer
mm.
of that scale. So in a way, I'm just going a little slow to make sure we have our processes in line and we can be consistent with our output.
Nice. I love that. So I want to go back. Background in corporate finance, knowing a lot in the finance accounting, that side of things, and moving into business. So I always like to ask that moment when you finally said, yes, I'm going to make this leap full time into doing the business route and leave, the corporate job security stuff behind. What was that like for you? Was that just kind of a flip the switch? You're like, yep, it's time, let's move. Was it a scary moment that kind of took some time to make that decision? How did you kind of go through that process?
Yeah. It certainly was not a flip switch type decision. It probably that decision took me about a month to finally decide that I am all in with this. It's really when the idea popped into my head, I was like, oh, this could work. And I always work with my dad who has success in business, back in his day. So I'm always just bouncing ideas off of him. And so in talking with him, and then he really challenged me to like, hey, if you're going to make a leap like this, you've got to do your homework before. So, I talked with a lot of just grocery stores, distributors, wholesalers around the area just to try and understand the market, see what is in demand, what are the challenges. And that took a lot of time. I mean, weeks to get that type of research in and start collecting data. And then just and my wife, she thought I should go for this as well once I had done the research. So she kind of gave me the nudge, like, I think it's a good idea. So, but there were some like sleepless nights wondering, like, is this a bad call? I've never, jumped out on a ledge quite like this. But looking back, it was scary, but I've certainly learned a whole lot through the whole experience.
That's awesome. Speaking of which, as you look back on this journey, you already mentioned like there's a lot that you've learned along the way, but is there, one or two items in particular, lessons in particular that stand out to you that you had to learn or went through the process of learning in kind of this journey of building the business?
Yeah. A couple certainly stand out that I try to have in my head really every day. The first is to fail often and fail small. And I made a few of those mistakes earlier. I certainly failed often, but I failed at too large of a scale. So I mentioned our initial launch being aquaponics. We did some good things there, but that was what ended up being a failure, and we had to redo it at too large of a scale. Whereas I could have done it at probably a quarter of the scale and saved a lot of money and headache and sleepless nights. So yeah, always doing experiments and failing, but yeah, failing at a smaller scale. Um, yeah, so that would be the biggest. I'll have to think about some others.
I love that. That's such a good lesson to learn and to learn it quickly as you go into business, that sort of thing.
Yeah,
But
and actually, I just thought of what I was trying to put in my head, but the last would be don't try to recreate the wheel. That's something I did with my initial launch. It's like, oh, I'm going to do it this way, try to save some money. Turns out, I mean, unless you're coming up with a just completely brand new revolutionary idea, a lot of people are likely doing what you're trying to do. So go and get advice, learn how to do it best, and you'll end up saving money, saving time, saving headache, and then yeah, building off of that.
that's such a fun lesson. Right there. That's just I could feel a lot of the same way on not recreating the wheel, and I don't know, maybe I'm a very detail oriented person. I love looking at the numbers and spreadsheets and everything else, and I've always got that same kind of mentality of, well, I can just build it and do it differently and it'll be better. It's like, well, or there's already a way to do it and that'll save a lot of time and effort. Um, so as you look to the next 3 to 5 years, always got to ask kind of forward facing. Let's look, to the future here. When you look 3 to 5 years out, what is the business doing at this point? What does your role within the company look like as you continue to grow and get 3 to 5 years out from here?
Yeah, so 3 to 5 years, I would love for we would have established customers. We'd be selling likely wholesale, retail, as well as doing some local farmers market type stuff. And I hope to have a really ingrained manager who's running the day to day of the business. because I would love for this to, I want to be involved, but I also would like to get into some other stuff. And if this can become really, just an ownership strategic type role that I can fill, I think that's what I would like to do versus being up at the greenhouse every day for 8 hours. So I would love to look into other business opportunities as well, and maybe, get a few that I can manage, and continue to challenge myself that way.
I love it. That is absolutely fantastic. It's one of those things that I'm passionate about. We're passionate about here, just talking business, all that kind of stuff. So that is so cool. Well, I want to be respectful of our time. I know we've been chatting for a while. We've covered a ton of ground in this conversation so far, but I do like to kind of jump in with a couple like rapid fire questions, kind of pull some additional wisdom nuggets out there for those that are watching this. So I've got four of them in total. We'll go as best top of head answer as possible. I know you could probably go deeper on a couple of them, but we'll go top of head answer best we can for these here. First one I've got for you here is Kyle. What would you say is your key to success?
Hmm. Um, well, hard work pops up in my mind, as well as just consistency and
Mm-hmm.
showing up on time, showing up consistently. If you show up on time and you work hard, I mean, I feel like that's 90% of getting where you want to go. So, um, yeah.
Love it. If you could give just one piece of advice to another business owner out there, what would you give?
Don't ever get discouraged when things aren't going your way, because I have had a whole lot of that. A lot of nights when I've just wondered what have I done. It's and it's hard to embrace failure and then grow from it. But so my advice would be learn to embrace failure and then figure out how to move on past it, and learn from it so it doesn't happen again.
Mm, that's a good piece of advice. What's one book that either you've read most recently or that you may currently be reading?
Yeah, I'm currently reading. It's a book about Navy SEAL training that, for whatever reason, I'm fascinated by. It's called The Warrior Elite, and it dives into just the rigors of training. But what I've really learned about is, and enjoyed reading about, is the mentality and digging into people's minds as far as what makes some people succeed and what makes other people quit.
Mm.
And for whatever reason, that's fascinating to me, and I've loved learning about that. Even the most extreme, harsh training that you can ever go through, you get that kind of mindset, and you can apply that to everyday life as well.
Wow, that's really cool. I'll have to put that on my list of books to go read. Here's final rapid fire question, kind of a fun one here. If you could choose just one area in your business, and you only get to pick one, and you could sprinkle some magic dust on it, and it would magically improve overnight, where would you choose to put that magic dust?
Ooh. Well, I would put that dust on making our Texas summer not quite as hot, probably. It's been brutal here. And we since we grow in a greenhouse, we're able to grow in summer, but it is just harsh working conditions. So yeah, I'm ready to get past summer. Long story short.
Oh man, for those that aren't, are not here in Texas that are watching this, it has been a very hot, last several weeks here. Uh, but all right, I've got, one question I'd like to wrap up these conversations on. But before we jump into that one, for those that want to learn more, that maybe they're owners of restaurants or grocery stores or whatever it is that may want to explore your product or something like that with you, where can we advise people to go for more information? How can they connect with you, follow you, all of that kind of stuff? Where can we ask them to go?
Yeah, so a few things. One, we have a website. It's just lonestarlettucegrowers.com. It's still very much a work in progress, but it is up and working as of now. We're on Instagram and Facebook, so feel free to follow those on social media. And then if you want to go and buy from us directly, we sell at it's Lakeline Farmers Market in just north of Austin, Texas. It's every Saturday morning. That's where you can find our organic, living, fresh produce.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to highly encourage everyone to go and do that, especially if you're here in the area. I will put all that information in the video description below. So if you missed it, just want to go make a note of that here. Um, Kyle, I appreciate this so much. I always like to end on this final question here, and that is, what is most inspiring to you today?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, something that's given me a lot of joy over the last certainly few months is when I get to go sell at a farmer's market. A lot of time, my wife will bring my little kids along, and we have a 5-year-old, 3-year-old, as well as a 1-year-old, and they will come in our little booth and start selling some of our lettuce, and that really puts a smile on my face, and the kids love it. They love what I'm doing, love the business, love the lettuce, all that. So it's really inspiring to know that I'm building a company that my kids really enjoy as well. And yeah,
Man, that is so cool. Is having some younger children as well, and it's one thing I have not done is being able to kind of ingrain some of those of being a part of the business, things like that. So that is so cool. Kyle, thank you so much for taking the time. This has been a genuine pleasure to sit down with you, chat through all of this kind of stuff. Thank you for sharing your insights and your knowledge and experience that you've gone through in building this business here. So thank you so much for taking the time.
yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. Appreciate it.